I'm going to uh, introduce our first presenter to us. He is in the name of Mr. Christopher Washington. He's a native of Little Rock, Arkansas, the youngest of 6 children. He's the son of a preacher, 2 preachers actually, Clinton Washington and Reverend Mary Washington. And he was educated in the Little Rock public schools. He calls it the historic Little Rock Central High School. It's where he graduated from. And after graduating, he spent 2 years at Miles College in Fairfield, Alabama, before transferring to Philander Smith College in Little Rock. He obtained a bachelor's degree there, and it was in business administration with a concentration on accounting. He is presently matriculating at Philander Smith, and he serves in the roles. It gave him an opportunity to serve as a student leader, the ambassador for the school, mentor to many underclassmen, and he attributes his growth to the administrators of Philander Smith College who pushed him to reach beyond his potential. He's a member of the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, the NAACP, and several other notable political organizations. He attends Arkansas State University, and he's pursuing a master's of business administration. And he serves as a student IT support manager for New York Institute of Technology, College of Orthopedic Medicine. Longtime member of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, and he serves at many levels. He's a treasurer of the Arkansas Region Young Adult Ministry, first vice president of Arkansas Region Lay Council, and Arkansas Region East District lay leader. He mentions his favorite Bible verse is Jeremiah 29:11. And his motto is to always keep trying, keep praying, stay positive, be awesome, and become better. I would simply add to that my experience with Chris has been quite rewarding in the sense that he invited me to come and share with his district several months ago. That's when we first got acquainted. I'm very, very impressed with him as a young man in the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, a young man who is pursuing his education, who's serious about life. And I think that we can glean much from him today. And he's the one that I wanted to come and share with us about education, still the key to opportunity. So I'm not going to try to say what he might say. We can comment later. But introduced to probably most of you, some of you may already know him, so we'll present him to those of you who know him. Mr. Christopher Washington.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Harris. And greetings to each and every one of you today. Good afternoon to each of you on the call. Let me briefly just acknowledge a few persons, to any of the College of Bishops that are on today, to my bishop, Bishop Henry M. Williamson, who is absent. He is in convocation right now. To the chair, my friend and frat brother, Bishop Marvin Frank Thomas, to all general officers and connectional officers, to Barbara Campbell in her absence, to my leader in the Young Adult Council in ministry, Reverend Amina McIntyre. It's always good to see you, and looking forward to hear you as well on today. To our distinguished General Secretary of Lay Ministry, Dr. Clifford Harris, let me just take this opportunity to thank you for allowing me to share in this virtual learning and equipping institute. I do enjoy attending these, and I would much rather listen to someone else today, but I don't take light the opportunity to share with you all, and I just thank you for entrusting me with this responsibility on today. Me and Dr. Harris, as he stated earlier, have developed a great relationship over the last few months in particular, and especially during the earlier parts of the pandemic when I was trying to figure out how to get some events going in my particular district. And just throughout that whole time, he's proven himself to be a friend and a mentor and just full of advice, and also a great motivator. So I do definitely appreciate you. You've given me a few opportunities to speak on a large scale with the Good Trouble Tuesdays and all of those opportunities. So I appreciate you, Dr. Harris, and pray that God continues to bless you as well for investing and equipping others to go be a blessing to others as well. For those of you who do not know me, I am Chris Washington, and I bring you all greetings from the First Episcopal District, where I serve as the lay leader of the East District and the Arkansas region. I don't know how many of my persons were able to get on. Like I said, we're in convocation right now, so I kind of snuck out so that I could be here today. But you know, I always try to recognize the fine people of the Arkansas region East District. My presiding elder, Ronald Williams, and all of the laity and clergy, they've put so much trust in me, especially over the last few years. And it's not always easy being the youngest person in the room and being looked upon as a leader. And then, you know, you're working with people who've basically seen you from diapers to diplomas and degrees. So, but all in all, I'm just grateful for the people of the Arkansas region. They are the people that have pushed me into certain leadership roles, and I'm always thankful for their investment in me. I think my sister may be on here. I don't know if my mom was able to make it today or not, but it's always good to see my sister, and thank you for being such a great support system for me. I really do appreciate you. And if I missed anyone in my introduction, please charge it to my head and not to my heart. I just appreciate each of you all and this opportunity. Switching gears just a little bit now, Dr. Harris did reach out to me at the end of last year to share in this particular topic, and we kind of got busy going into the new year. But once he did get back around to getting to me, y'all, he hit me with a lot. But we're gonna try to make the most out of what he gave me, and I hope today that I'm able to hit on as many of the topics and things as possible within the allotted time. This is a very crucial topic, and I just hope that you all gauge something from what we share on today. So without any further ado, let's begin our presentation for today. Education, still the key to opportunity. And as Dr. Harris has given me the permission to do, I put a subtitle to the presentation, and it's simply Education Matters. Education Matters. Next slide. Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, the sixth president of Morehouse College, states that the tragedy of life doesn't lie in not reaching your goal, but the tragedy in life lies in having no goal to reach. It's not calamity to die with dreams unfulfilled, but it's calamity not to dream. It is not a disgrace not to reach the stars, but it is a disgrace to have no stars to reach. Not failure, but low aim is sin. You all, what I'm about to say, I'm not saying it to be cliche or because it sounds good, but the truth is that education really is power. Education is power. Education is a necessary tool in our highly competitive society and in our ever-changing economy. During the pandemic, many of us have been forced to somewhat educate ourselves to be our own personal IT technicians in regard to understanding the fundamental technological uses of video chatting and conferencing and running Zoom meetings like this one that we're on today. However, today, regardless of our demographical position and socioeconomic status, religious view, or even age, and then regarding the struggles of life, despite your past, each of us can find value in being educated. Now, there are a plethora of definitions and perspectives, but the definition that we would like to use for this presentation to define education is a process of acquiring knowledge through study or imparting the knowledge by way of your instructions or some other practical procedure. In layman terms, education is the passage to progress. Progress then suggests that with education, individuals can propel themselves to new heights and obtain achievements that otherwise may not be attainable without some form of education. This then speaks to the importance of education and the benefits of formal education. Education itself is important because the lack thereof is detrimental to the well-being of a society. Many of our social issues are linked to the lack of education. How do our communities eradicate and eliminate poverty if we're not educating our communities on financial literacy? How do our communities lower suicide rates if we're not educating them on the adverse effects of mental illness? How were we going to end or avoid a pandemic if our past president continually rejected advice from medical professionals to devise his own uneducated theory on the Chinese virus? What I want us to understand is that education could possibly be the difference between saving 500,000 lives or losing 5,100 lives. Education creates a better society. This then looms true when we look at the life of Dr. Martin Luther King, who basically was convicted through his researching and understanding the life of Dr. Howard Thurman and Gandhi. He educated himself through their works so that he could, in a peaceful way, launch the peaceful protests and nonviolent movement in the 1950s and 60s. We too can educate ourselves on the civil and social wrongs in this land and work to become those catalysts for change in the world today. God is actually seeking more change agents, and we can educate ourselves to take the right steps to create a better world. Regarding the importance of education, education inspires innovation and encourages creativity. Not everyone has a Bill Gates or a Steve Jobs dropout turned billionaire story, but there are many unsung heroes who are educated and allowed their creative minds to propel them to the threshold of wealth. One person in particular is responsible for making my childhood as enjoyable as it was. This Tuskegee grad is Lonnie Johnson. He was a founder of the Super Soaker and the water gun and Nerf toys. Lonnie Johnson used his mechanical engineer degree from Tuskegee and coupled it with his experiences in the US Air Force to develop the water gun. And to this day, his invention is worth over $200 million. Education is important because it opens the mind to new possibilities and clears a perspective that can only manifest when individuals tap into their creativity. The United Negro College Fund has a famous tagline that I'm sure many of us know: "A mind is a terrible thing to waste." And the validity of this tagline is true yet daunting when we think of all of the wasted potential and ideas that never came into fruition because someone did not invest in their mind. When we examine education, there are three types. You have your formal, you have informal, and then you have non-formal. Formal basically is our everyday classroom learning and schooling, school systems at universities and colleges with qualified teachers and professors. Informal deals more so with those learning that we get through experience or without a set curriculum. It's more so spontaneous learning. And then you have non-formal, and it's just as it sounds, not directly connected to an institution or system, and is pretty much flexible. Our aim today is to emphasize and embrace formal education for laity, both young and old. While an undergraduate, one of the most demoralizing statements I would often hear by people who look like me is that our degrees hold no weight, in terms that our bachelor's degree are merely a ticket to get our resumes and applications glanced at by some hiring manager. Now, whether there is truth to that or not, we have to be careful with our messages, and we have to ensure that we are motivating people to pursue a formal education and ultimately obtain a degree. Something that is known is that formal education, depending on your particular circumstances or situation, can become costly. And one day it is my prayer that legislators will construct a bipartisan plan to dissolve student loans. But I'm like the Hebrew boys when it comes to that. But if not, I still believe that the benefits of education far more outweigh the risks. You can go to the next slide, Brother Bill. Make it personal. So this year I have recommitted myself to doing something that I really wanted to do in 2020. However, unfortunately, I didn't receive the memo that a deadly disease was going to sweep through the land and shut down the world, as I'm sure you didn't get that memo either. But I didn't quite get to do what I wanted to do. But basically, I was going to develop a personal brand that would later on include some subsidiaries as it grew. But in my quest to fine tune my ideas, I reached out to a brand coach and a content creator. She's a very dynamic young lady by the name of Erin Winters. And Erin Winters' brand is called Erin On Demand. But after I had pitched everything to her, and in our coaching session, her message to me was not to defer from my faith and my story in whatever I do. She simply told me to tell my story. As a young Black male in America, it is imperative that people understand the link between my salvation and education. And might I go back and say, as a young Black Christian male in America, it's imperative that people understand my link between salvation and education. So as I move quickly, these three photos that you see on the screen are at different periods of time in my life: high school, undergrad, and then graduate school. To make a long story short, I had the Division I basketball dreams. That was my goal. And I was convinced by my bishop at the time, Bishop Lawrence L. Reddick, to go to Miles College. Now, I didn't want to go to Miles. Obviously, I was going to walk on to the University of Memphis. And when I got to Miles College, even though I did not stay there, it was an assignment for me. I had to meet Christ at Miles College because he was far from my mind and my heart at that particular time in my life. And what ended up happening is I met and got to watch a young man from afar that many of you may know. His name is Reverend Jaquan Kinsey. Me and Jaquan Kinsey were at Miles College at the same time. And Jaquan Kinsey was the man on campus. But what was so great about Jaquan Kinsey is that he didn't mind letting his spiritual light shine all the time. And I admired that about him. And I said, whenever and if I get to go to another school, get to go to another campus, I'm going to be the Jaquan Kinsey there, because it was so inspiring for me as a young Black man to see another Black man, young Black man, unapologetic about his faith and thriving in what he was doing. And so when I went to Philander Smith College the next year, I made sure that I put myself out there to, one, show people that young Black men can be Christian and make big moves. And I did my best to get my mindset changed to where I had a mindset that was focused on being educated and also letting people know that I was saved. That's my story of salvation and education. And it was all due to the fact that I was able to watch another young Black man exhibit his faith and his academic excellence at another college. Next slide. A Black church fueling Black scholars. When I reflect on slavery, it magnifies to me just how much my generation takes for granted. Though there are some parallels in terms of the disparities we may face and the hidden racial agendas being disguised as acts and bills, in my lifetime, it has never been illegal for me to learn how to read and write. However, this makes sense because following the Civil War, you had a large group of African Americans who did not know how to read or write. And after years of bondage and being faced with the illegality of the unjust South, those newly free slaves were eager to learn how to read and write. And yet it was their strong spiritual convictions. They wanted to know how to read the Word of God. This then made the Black church become the catalyst for educating Black people. And like always, Black women were leading the cause. Women like Virginia Brockton, a graduate of Fisk University. She established what was called Bible bands and organized community Bible studies across the South. When the Bible bands convened, there would be a verse of the day. And if someone did not know how to read the verse, the leader would then teach them how to read and then also ask them to memorize it. These studies would meet in the basement of churches, and over time, those churches would evolve into what we now know as historically Black colleges and universities. That is what education does when you combine it with salvation. Only God can take a people who do not know how to read, write, spell, add or subtract, and birth out of them colleges and universities. That brings me to the CME Church. A name change from colored to Christian in 1954 does not change the fact that we too were birthed deeply in Black soil in Jackson, Tennessee, with our 41 ex-slave founders. I love the CME Church because it places a strong emphasis on social justice and education. It's evident by the example of some of the most notable CME scholars and 5 institutions of higher learning, higher education that we support. Our church and our denomination is grounded in educating our members, our clergy, and our communities. I'm sure that soon-to-be Dr. Reverend McIntyre would appreciate this, but you cannot mention scholars without thinking about Bishop Joseph A. Johnson, the 34th bishop of the church, who broke racial divides and became the first African-American to be admitted to and graduate from Vanderbilt University with a Bachelor's of Divinity and a Doctor of Philosophy. All this after he had already obtained 3 degrees from 3 other institutions. And to this day, he remains a standard for a scholarly clergy in the church today. I also want to mention one Dr. Yvonne Kennedy. Dr. Kennedy received a bachelor's from Alabama State University and a master's from Morgan State University. She also earned a PhD from the University of Alabama. Dr. Kennedy's resume is too lengthy to even go into detail about at the moment. But most notably, she served as the national president of Delta Sigma Theta. She served as the president of Bishop State Community College and as on the Alabama House of Representatives. Two great CMEs whose educational endeavors enabled them to both make history and blaze a trail for many other clergy and laity to follow in their footsteps. Our Black church is fueling Black scholars through the work of our 5 schools: Lane College, Miles College, Texas College, Payne College, and Phillips School of Theology at ITC, educating thousands of students and preachers year in and year out. It's a blessing to be a part of a church that values education and understands the benefits of education. The Black church continues to fuel Black scholars by investing in the minds of individuals and allowing them to share their gifts throughout the church. Next slide. There is no age requirement for education. Just as the lady pictured here, 80-year-old Donzella Washington, who graduated magna cum laude at Alabama A&M University in 2019. She made history as the oldest graduate in the school's 144 years of existence. Donzella stated that she wanted to inspire and motivate others that age is not a barrier to education. Ms. Washington is certainly an inspiration and proves that it is never too late to graduate. Sharpen your skills and sharpen your skill set with a degree. Invest in certifications. Certifications help individuals gain a competitive advantage. Certifications can differentiate you from other professionals in your field, showing that you have demonstrated a commitment to understanding and excelling in your profession. This can give you an advantage, which is particularly important in today's competitive market. Stats show that many professional certifications can potentially increase salaries from 20 to 40%. Clients will understand those higher costs associated with specialized training and are willing to pay for consultants who have industry-specific certifications. There are an increasing number of companies and nonprofits and government organizations that, when working with independent consultants, want to engage those who have certifications from recognized programs. Certification demonstrates that your commitment, it demonstrates your commitment to superior professionalism, upholding industry standards, and continued learning. Make logical and worthwhile decisions when choosing a program of higher education. Plan out what it is that you want to do with your degree so that you can maximize the return on the investment. Pursue a field of study that interests you and find inspiration in these words, as I did during my times of studying, from Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays. Whatever you do, strive to do it so well that no man living, no man dead, and no man yet to be born can do it any better. Next slide. For those of you who may already have certain certifications and degrees, this is a challenge for us to advocate. Let us, as the laity of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, act as advocates for education in our churches, in our communities, and in our families. Education is still the key to opportunity, and it yields the potential to shape a brighter future. Everyone, education does matter. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Brother Washington.
Yes, sir.
You know, we if we live long enough, We learn that if there are things to be done and we have a mind to try to do it or try to say it, we don't have to do it all, and we don't have to try to say it all. There's somebody that can do it just as good or better. And I say unashamedly, I couldn't have done it any better. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Brother Washington. And you see why that we asked him to share with us. He touched on, I think, enough that we can take away from what he shared with us, use it for ourselves, and share it with someone else. Don't be like the man who said, I'm going to learn all I can, then I'm going to can it, then I'm going to sit on the can. Well, what you've learned today, don't sit on it. Take it and share it with the young people. Take it and share it with the people in our church. So are there any questions that you have of Mr. Washington? Well, don't be surprised, Chris, if you get some phone calls. You did a splendid job today, and we thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
I have one question, if it's appropriate. You talked about certifications, and I think a lot of us who are in the workforce probably don't really realize how available that type of education is available and how important it is. Could you expound on that just a little bit?
Yes, sir. I think that's something that does get overlooked a lot in terms of our professional experiences. So for me, I'm trying to get an MBA in finance. So that's good, but the certifications that would go with that to propel me even further would be a chartered financial analyst, which is a CFA, and other things. So the best route that I would take is to check out what programs are being offered at a particular institution, because at my school per se, I'm not able to take the CFA exams and things like that. I would have to go through another institution. But it's all basically educating yourself on the different certifications for your particular field of study that will basically enhance it may enhance your earning potential, or it just may give you that extra boost of knowledge that you need to better do your job and suit it at your job. So I hope that answers the question, but it's basically just a lot of research and making sure that you find the best program and certification that's going to fit what you're already doing.
Wonderful. Anyone else have a question? Just Diana Winton, did you have a question or comment? Okay, unmute yourself. Are you're muted?
Yes, I'm unmuted now. I couldn't at first. Thank you
Okay.
so much. And I just wanted to say to Brother Washington, you did an awesome job. I mean, you gave out a lot of information that we need to use for ourselves and share. But I'm wondering, how can we get this across to the young people and young adults that we are encouraging and inspiring, and know that there is a way, where there's a will, there's a way for them to move forward. I wish that we could share your presentation today, even through the Board of Christian Education, for our lay young adults, middle adults, and so on. So I'm just wondering, what's the best way to get this message, your presentation out to those who could really benefit from it, because it was really good.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I think that well, we have the young adult leader on today, so that may be something she could help us with. But you know, just person, the reason that I'm so deeply involved with the lay is because I had, you know, extra push to get me in certain positions. I didn't necessarily want them because that's just the kind of person that I am. I'd rather sit in the back, but you know, I've had people push me forward. And so if we're talking about starting from the bottom up, you know, there's some young people that may want to do some things, but we're not giving them that extra push to get them out there and to really get them engaged in things like this. So, you know, that would be the first thing, starting at the local level. And then, you know, making sure that they're participating in some of the events we have coming up on the connectional level as well. CYYAC, they don't have to go anywhere. They can sit at their computer and, you know, things like that. So just making sure we push the young people to work, and then once they get to a certain point like I did, you know, they're willing to work after a while. So
All righty. Thank you so much.